And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us once again across the great Louisiana plain, where we are elevating the cause of constitutional conservatism, raising the voice of liberty and freedom in Louisiana, and day by day draining the Louisiana swamp. My name is Chris.
And I'm Danielle, and this is the State of Freedom, brought to you by freedom-loving Louisiana First Patriots. Hello, State of Freedom warriors. Thank you for having us along for some small piece of your day. We are so grateful for you. You are the best listening family anyone could possibly hope for. And we are only here because of your encouragement, your prayers, and your financial support. If you're looking for a way to support us, to advertise with us, or to send us feedback, please visit our website at freedomstate.us. We would also really appreciate it if you'd help us get the word out and spread the reach of the State of Freedom. You know how to do that. Like the show on whatever platform you listen to us, subscribe to it, and share it. You can share short clips if you prefer that to sharing full episodes. You can do that from our YouTube and Rumble channels, and the links to those are always in the show notes and over on freedomstate.us. Well, today we have State Senator Jeremy Stine joining us to talk about something that a lot of our listeners have raised concerns about, and that is the proposed sale of Blue Cross Blue Shield to Elevance. So we are going to get into that discussion shortly, but first, let me read the scripture of the day. It is Psalms chapter 71, verses 20 to 24, and it says, "Even though you've let us sink down with trials and troubles, I know you will revive us again, lifting us up from the dust of death. Give us even more greatness than before. Turn and comfort us once again. My loving God, the harp in my heart will praise you. Your faithful heart toward us will be the theme of my song. Melodies and music will rise to you, the Holy One of Israel. I will shout and sing your praises for all you are to me, Savior, lover of my soul. I'll never stop telling others how perfect you are, while all those who seek my harm slink away ashamed and defeated." And this is a year and a moment to live in expectation of a turnaround. As we continue to trust in the faithfulness of God and keep our hearts and our hands clean before Him, as we continue to praise Him for His goodness, we will experience a turnaround for our state and nation. I'm convinced of it. And it won't just be a small improvement. He will give us even more greatness than we've ever experienced. And a big part of this turnaround is keeping our hope, our eyes, and our worship fixed on Him as we keep doing the work He's called us to do.
Eyes focused on the Lord, eyes focused on the Lord, and remembering, Danielle, that we keep our eyes on heaven, and that helps us to be even more effective here because we have our eyes on the broader perspective. And we have to remember that ultimately, this world is not our true country. Heaven is our true country, but we will be held accountable for the extent to which we were faithful and acted in faithful service to the truth while we were here. And that's what we are trying to do. And it is such a pleasure to be doing it with you. All right, what a pleasure it is to have Senator Jeremy Stine with us for the second time today on the State of Freedom to talk about an issue that is so very, very important, the potential sale of Blue Cross Blue Shield. Jeremy, how are you today, sir?
Oh, doing excellent, Chris. Thank you so much, you and Danielle, for having me on. It's truly a blessing to be here to discuss a very important issue. So thank you for giving me that opportunity.
It's great to have you.
Absolutely. It's great to have you on. The more we've dug into this, Senator Stine, the worse this looks from just about every angle. Tell us about this potential deal and why it is so bad for the citizens of Louisiana.
Absolutely. There's a lot of details, but at a very high level, Chris, this potential sale, again, it's Blue Cross Blue Shield of Louisiana, which is a nonprofit mutual, essentially owned by its policyholders and members, which there are about 1.9 million total members. So almost half the state of Louisiana is insured by Blue Cross Blue Shield of Louisiana. They're attempting to sell, when I say they, the board of directors and the CEO wants to sell the company to a for-profit company out of Indiana called Elevance Health. They used to be called Anthem. So if you want to find out more about the company, I suggest looking up both Elevance and Anthem. And at the end of the day, Chris, it's just a bad deal for the policyholders, for the members, and for the state of Louisiana. Ultimately, in my heart of hearts, I truly believe if this sale goes through, that premiums will go up and the service levels will go down. If you look across the country, anytime this has taken place with an Elevance or an Anthem acquiring these companies, premiums have gone up and the service levels have gone down. And I'll leave it up for questions, Chris, because I could go on and on. But the more you dig into this thing, the more it's bad. But
why don't we start with what precipitated the deal? Is Blue Cross Blue Shield in financial distress of some kind, or did Elevance approach them?
Great question, Danielle. So they are not in financial distress. In fact, they've actually, to the credit of the current CEO, he's actually done a good job of having Blue Cross Blue Shield in a good financial position. I believe he came on in 2016. So to his credit and the organization's credit, the service levels are great compared to other insurers, and they've got $1.8 billion in cash reserves, so they're financially stable. He pitches it. He is the CEO, that is, pitches as this is the opportune time to sell because we are in a good position and we're not in a position of weakness to sell. And look, I understand that from a business perspective, but at the end of the day, I just don't think it's the right move for Blue Cross to be selling. They'll also try to pitch it as this is a good sale for us to do now because we just can't compete in the marketplace because these larger corporations like Elevance are just too big and we just can't compete with them. And I wholeheartedly disagree. If that were the case, they wouldn't have 50% of the market share. And the reason they have 50% of the market share is because they do a good job and they are able to compete. So I just don't buy into that argument. I think we just disagree on many fronts, but the biggest thing here is this sell, and hopefully it won't go through. We can talk about the mechanism on what the next steps are. But
yeah, and I'd also like maybe if you could set up for our listeners what's the difference in the proposed structure from what they currently have and what that will mean for them.
Yeah, so just a quick background on that, Danielle, to your question. There was the original proposal, which was last year when they rolled this out, I believe in the summer of last year, 2023. Once we the legislature caught wind of this potential sale, we immediately did a joint insurance committee hearing, which was able to provide more transparency around the process, but shine more light on the deal and what this means for Louisiana's policyholders. And the moment we did that, the moment we had that oversight hearing, they immediately started to crawfish and say, you know what, maybe we better go back to the drawing board and see if we can, maybe they'll forget about it and we'll bring it back up in 2024 with the new administration. And as far as I can tell, the deal 2.0, the new deal, isn't any different. The only slight difference is this new $3 billion foundation that they intend to set up, which they pitch will cure all of the health woes of Louisiana. It will have a board seat. The governor can appoint someone, and then the Department of Insurance commissioner will have a seat as well. Other than that slight difference in the makeup of the foundation board, there's virtually no difference whatsoever. And so that's why I still stand opposed to it.
But just to clarify, maybe I didn't ask the question as well as I would have liked. The for-profit structure versus the existing structure of Blue Cross Blue Shield. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. It's just the basic high level. It's the current structure. It's a nonprofit mutual. So the policyholders, there's 95,000 policyholders, but the total membership is 1.9 million. And that just simply, if a company, say, has 500 employees, well, the policyholder is actually that employer, whereas the remaining 499, let's say, employees would be the members. And so that's the mutual. And then Elevance is a for-profit, publicly traded corporation out of Indiana. The majority shareholders are the usual suspects of, BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. I think they own probably anywhere from 10 to 20% total equity. And then the CEO, Gail Boudreaux, is out of Indiana. So it's a big corporation, much larger than Blue Cross Blue Shield. And so that's kind of a high level structure of it.
When you talk about the premiums on this, Jeremy, because I can tell you that one of the big concerns that the policyholders are going to have are the fact that their premiums are going to go up under this sale. Do you have any idea how much their premiums are I mean, anything is too much, but do you have any idea how much their premiums are likely to go up at a time when people are having a hard time meeting their basic expenses in this economy?
It's a great question, Chris. We don't know for certain how much it will go up. We can point to history. I think there was a Harvard study done that showed that when Elevance acquires companies, that premiums do go up by 13%. And look, in an era of inflation and when you acquire a company, something's got to give. And I fear that these premiums will undoubtedly go up. All signals point that they would go up.
It has to, because the company this Elevance company will be beholden to its stockholders instead of the policyholders. And so they have every incentive to raise policies and to cut, most likely, coverage for people.
No, that's an excellent point. And again, Elevance and Anthem, if you look up some of their past history, that's exactly what takes place. And so we're just judging by history. And if they're a good corporate partner, I think you will find that they are not. I mean, when you look at Anthem just recently, or Elevance, is being sued by the Department of Justice for fraud. So I just don't think this is, number one, I don't think that should be selling. But number two, if you're going to sell, I don't believe Elevance is the right partner to be purchasing Blue Cross.
Well, imagine that, a company that's under federal investigation. Yeah, I think I would tend to agree with you on that. What about, Jeremy, the risk of some insureds being dropped off or not being able to keep the doctors that they currently have? Is there a risk there?
There's concern there. A big overarching concern would be when they, quote, narrow the network. That's always a big concern, meaning they could start to select a large hospital in Louisiana who has a lot of leverage, and they could start to narrow the network and do business with this large hospital to create monopolistic effects. And what you have in turn would be these rural hospitals, the ones that fall by the wayside, ultimately coming to the legislature, I believe, and saying, hey, we're out of money. Can you help us out? And so I fear for the hospitals, particularly the not just the rural, but everyone that potentially fall outside of a potential monopoly.
Yeah, as we were looking into this, Jeremy, that we found that the company has a long track record of rescinding health insurance policies for its policyholders. And starting in 2007, under the name Anthem, as you mentioned, they were canceling the insurance of policyholders who had been diagnosed with costly or life-threatening illnesses in California. And that California agency concluded that all of the cancellations that they had made were illegal. Can you imagine canceling someone's insurance policy at basically the worst possible time in their life when they're under the most stress? I just find that completely revolting. And after that, they were using algorithms and they were targeting women who were diagnosed with breast cancer for policy cancellation. And then they started just targeting people who were using a credit card to pay their premium, just randomly canceling them with no forewarning. And as Chris mentioned, the company has fraud claims coming out of the wazoo. They're being investigated by the Department of Justice. So I don't know how this does not pass the sniff test on any level for me.
Danielle, you hit the nail on the head. It is absolutely revolting. And going back to 2000, they've been levied with more than $1 billion with a B as in boy of fines. And that's just completely unacceptable. I don't know why we would ever consider this sale. And look, to get to this point, to where we are today, where it had to have passed the board of, in other words, the board of the directors, the 12 board of directors of Blue Cross had to have approved the initial structure of this deal for it to get to where we are today, which I'll get to in a second. But those board of directors were promised $1 million each to pass this potential sale onto, which ultimately remains in the fate of the 95,000, which I'll get to. But in the contract, it says you will stay on board of directors for 10 years and get paid $105,000 a year. So over $1 million if you vote yes. I mean,
some people might call that a bribe.
Exactly. It'd be hard to vote no on something like that. I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
Even Mother Teresa.
Just unbelievable. It's every incentive to do. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. And so there's that. But where we are today, the mechanism for it to actually go through, the fate of it truly does. It's in the hands of the 95,000 policyholders. Right now, those ballots are starting to hit the mailbox.
Yeah.
And so you may have, if you're a policyholder, you may have already. I've had 5 constituents this week alone text me and say, "Hey, I got my ballot in the mail. Are you still against this?" And I said, "Absolutely, and here's why." And so those ballots are hitting the mailbox, and for this deal to go through, they need 2/3 vote yes ballots returned back in. So that means if they get 1,000 ballots returned back to their mailbox, Blue Cross that is, if they get 1,000 ballots returned, that means they only need 667 votes yes. So they need 2/3 of the ballots returned. And we don't know how many people are going to actually return their ballot, but all they need is the 2/3 vote yes of ballots returned. And then it would go into the last and final step to Commissioner of Insurance Tim Temple's desk, and he can vote yes or no. He's the final arbiter in this whole sale. But I hope it doesn't reach his desk. And that's why I want to thank you both for having me on, because we have to educate the public. We have to tell them why this deal is bad, which I think we're doing as we speak. And it's absolutely vital that they vote no when they get that ballot in the mail. We have it's a tall order, and the odds are against us from this perspective. They're spending tens of thousands of dollars. They, as in Blue Cross Blue Shield in Louisiana, they're spending, the board of directors and the CEO, they're spending tens of thousands of dollars as we speak. And you can open any newspaper in Louisiana right now, and you'll see them advertising how great the sale is going to be. Well, those advertisements that you're reading in the paper, that you're seeing billboards or TV saying how great a deal that's going to be, that's being paid for by your premium dollars.
Absolutely. What a disgrace.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable that they're able to advertise on how wonderful the deal is going to be with your premium dollars.
I wonder what an ethics investigation looks like on that, because it seems very much like one hand, you're paying the hand that feeds you, or I don't really know what the right analogy is, but it's just not right.
No, it's not.
I'm excited to share a fantastic opportunity for State of Freedom listeners who are interested in investing in precious metals or even starting a home-based business in the precious metals industry. Metal Stacks is a precious metals collectors club where you can buy your metals at the best prices on the market, actual dealer cost. They are beating the big sites. They have no credit card fees and no minimums. If you're just interested in purchasing metals at a great price, visit metalstacks.com/dwalker. Get to shopping. That helps me out. I get the commission. You can also refer people to Metal Stacks for an additional income. If you're interested in learning about the referral business aspect of Metal Stacks, email me directly at danielle@freedomstate.us for more information.
This is something that I'm sure that the board of directors, the people trying to make the sale go through, are not telling their policyholders or their members that, and tell me if I'm right about this, that $3 billion of the proceeds from this sale will be able to be diverted into a social welfare foundation, a nonprofit that allows them to engage in political activities.
That's right. Thank you for bringing that up. Yet another reason to vote against this. So the foundation, I think they're going to call it Accelerate. And if you look at their advertisement, they pitch this foundation as a cure-all for our health woes in Louisiana. It'll be a $3 billion foundation, and it's being paid for by your premium dollars. So if this sale goes through, they're going to raid the cash reserves, dump it into this foundation, which will be one of the largest nonprofit foundations in the country. And it will be a 501c4, as you mentioned, a nonprofit, so they'll be able to engage in political activity if they so choose. I have a problem with that. When you're funding this thing with people's premium dollars to be a nonprofit that can engage in political activity, we don't know who the board of directors are going to be. We do know that the current CEO of Elevance has given to people like Hillary Clinton and Chuck Schumer and some of the most pro-choice people on the face of the earth. I'm not comfortable if I were a paying member policyholder with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Louisiana, knowing that I'm funding a nonprofit foundation that can dabble in politics, that could give to, say, Planned Parenthood. That doesn't sit right with me.
Yeah.
And so there's a whole lot of issues I have with this nonprofit.
So at a minimum, we don't know nearly enough about who's going to be controlling and directing this $3 billion political machine, basically. And at worst, you have at least some reason to believe that it's going to be a left-leaning political organization that could be funding all manner of things that the people who are whose premiums are being used to set it up would probably completely disagree with.
Absolutely. Again, this foundation will ultimately be controlled by Elevance. And if you look at their top shareholders, BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard, a CEO that's given to Hillary Clinton and Chuck Schumer, look, it's the whole thing stinks.
And I'll go one step further. So to think that the people who have private health insurance with Blue Cross Blue Shield, they're paying their premium. They're also paying taxes, and they're paying into Medicare for some time down the line. So you're telling me that they need to be paying for the social welfare of the people in our state who can't afford health insurance now with their tax dollars, and they're going to do it also with their premium dollars, which is going to serve them less with their own private health insurance. To me, that's just like complete insanity.
It is. But here's what's scary, going back to the mechanism on how this thing goes through. They are going to compensate the 95,000 policyholders with $3,000 each. And so, look, you can't blame Mr. and Mrs. Jones or whomever they are if they're on a fixed income and they're aging, right? And there's $3,000 that they're dangling in front of them saying, hey, nothing's going to change with your health care. Everything's going to be fine and dandy. That $3,000 means a lot to them. And so that's one of those uphill battles I was talking about. And they are spending a lot of money to say how wonderful this deal is going to be. So that's one aspect. One issue I haven't talked about yet that's another concerning point. Right now, there's 3,500 people that are employed by Blue Cross Blue Shield of Louisiana. And I can promise you this, even though they've said, I haven't seen it in the contract, but they've said for 2 years they won't cut the labor force of Blue Cross Blue Shield of Louisiana. Okay, fine. What happens after that 2 years? You can't tell me that when you talk about creating efficiencies with this deal, that doesn't include the labor force. And so when you've got duplication of services and you got folks in Baton Rouge doing the same thing that the other 3,500 people are doing in Indianapolis, the first one to get cut, I can promise you, is not the corporate office in Indianapolis. It's going to be the folks down in Baton Rouge.
That's right.
So that, again, is another red flag.
Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds, Jeremy, like a whole lot they're not saying. There's a whole lot they're not saying. Exactly,
Chris. There's a lot not being said, and thankfully you've got a platform where we can hopefully shine some light on this thing. And there will be a hearing. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that. Another oversight hearing, a joint Senate Insurance and Senate Health Committee hearing this Monday at the Capitol, where we'll be able to ask questions. Unfortunately, I'm not on either of those committees this term. However, I plan to be there, and we'll be able to ask these questions, these hard questions, hopefully of the leadership of Blue Cross and Elevance.
And Jeremy, you mentioned earlier that should this pass, and it doesn't need to pass 2/3 of policyholders, to reiterate, it needs to pass 2/3 of the ballots that are returned.
Correct. That's correct.
Okay. If it passes that way, then it would land on the new insurance commissioner, Tim Temple's desk. Have you had a conversation with him about this?
I have. It was several months ago, last year, actually, before he was even sworn in. just to make sure that he was aware of it and he was starting to be brought up to speed on the intricacies of it. With that said, I don't expect him to weigh in one way or the other, mainly because he is that final arbiter, and he's not going to mention anything publicly, nor should he. I think appropriately, he's staying out of it, and almost like a judge in a case, being able to listen to both sides and not tipping his hand one way or the other. And to Jim Donovan's credit, he did the same thing last year. He never weighed in. In fact, I don't even think he attended the oversight hearing we had, and nor did we expect him to. And I think they're both Tim Temple and Jim Donovan have taken the correct approach, and because they are that final arbiter, and being able to listen to both sides, and hopefully, if indeed it reaches his desk, Tim Temple's desk, then hopefully he'll make the right decision.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. We've heard really good things about him, so we have every reason to hope he would make a good decision for the state.
Absolutely.
Jeremy, what authority and power does the Oversight Committee and or the legislature generally have over this process, this transaction?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's no authority whatsoever in terms of whether the transaction goes through or not. All we could do as the legislature is to simply shine light on the deal, have these oversight hearings to try to get to the truth and find out more about the deal. And that's what we intend to do. It worked last time in terms of taking the deal off the table. We're hoping it'll work this time and taking the deal off the table. So it plays an important role. I'm not trying to undersell it. It plays an important role in terms of oversight and shining a light on all the bad things of this deal. And so it's important that people pay attention and stay tuned for that hearing on the 5th. And of course, February 14th and 15th, there will be more opportunity for people to voice their concerns at the Department of Insurance, where the Department of Insurance will take it's a public comment period, so you can show up and make your voice heard, and hopefully that will assist in slowing this deal down.
Yeah. What should our Jeremy? What should our listeners, State of Freedom listeners, and LeCAG members? What is the best thing for them to be doing right now in order to express their opposition to this deal? Should they reach out to the people at Blue Cross? Do they reach out to the Oversight Committee with concerns? What should they be doing right now?
Thank you for asking that. 3 main things. Number 1, tune in this Monday, whether you can do it via internet, because it's public hearings for the committee hearing. You can look at just type in the Louisiana State Senate, and you can watch the live broadcast from your phone or from a computer. Chime in if need be. If you have the time to show up. That'd be number 1, to get a sense of what's taking place. Number 2, another public comment period that I mentioned, February 14th and 15th. Show up if you can show up. Try to pay attention to those comments. And number 3, if you've made that decision and you already know you're against this deal, text anybody and everybody you know, close friends and family, make them aware of it. And because there's a good chance they're a policyholder or a member, because, again, Blue Cross is half the state of Louisiana. So just making sure that friends and family are aware of this deal. And if someone happens to be one of those 95,000 that has a ballot, making sure they're educated enough to know that this is a bad deal and that they vote no.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, and absolutely, Danielle. Thank you so much, Jeremy. And we're going to be spreading this around on social media, on X, formerly Twitter, and every other social media platform that we have, because as Danielle said earlier, the whole thing just absolutely stinks. It really does from every angle. But thank you for everything that you're doing as a state senator to try to raise public awareness, and we'll be following it very, very closely.
Thank you. I can't thank you enough, Chris and Danielle, for shining light on this. I appreciate it. Really do.
It's our pleasure. Thank you. We'll talk to you soon.
Excellent. Thank you all so much.
Chris, when Senator Stine mentioned the statement that the CEO and the Blue Cross Blue Shield board was saying that nothing's going to change with your health insurance, I was having flashbacks to Obama telling everyone, you get to keep your doctor, you get to keep your coverage, nothing's going to change. Well, I think a lot of people found out that his words were not were not honest either. And so, anytime somebody says to you, nothing's going to change, we all need to be very, very aware that, that's probably a straight up lie.
Oh my gosh, you're so right. And right when you said flashback, I knew you were going to say Obamacare, because there are so many things that Blue Cross Blue Shield and Elevance are simply not saying. Things that would kill this thing if their policyholders really knew what's going to happen and what's going on here. So
And what
we
a
have to make
shame.
sure that we let everybody. Yeah, it is a shame.
If they're doing such a great job managing the policies for half of the state as a company right now, but they want to sell their policyholders down the river, I just have a really hard time squaring that,
Yeah, it's so many different reasons why this thing doesn't need to go through, and we're going to raise public awareness. And I want to obviously thank our listeners for the State of Freedom and thank LCAG members for always, taking action on these calls to action. And I'm going to ask everyone who hears this show today to make sure that they reach out to family and friends, everybody you know, by email, social media, by text message, everyone you know, and tell them that this Blue Cross Blue Shield of Louisiana potential sale is a horrible deal for its policyholders, and oppose it and vote against it if you happen to be a policyholder. But people need to know what a terrible deal this is.
They do, and I hope listeners would also share the episode so people can kind of get some of those deeper insights that Senator Stine had to share that maybe are not that easy to just share over text.
Oh, absolutely. Please share the episode so you can listen to it and really get the detailed reasons of why this is such a horrible deal. But Danielle, I'm glad we came on today with Senator Stine. This was sort of 11th hour because Senator Stine reached out to us earlier today and asked if he could come on in order to make sure that this gets out there and that the public knows really what's going on here. So it was an honor to have him on, and it's obviously always an honor to be with you. And I thank all of our State of Freedom listeners and donors and supporters for continuing to help us build our platform across the state so we can address issues just like this and get the word out quickly to people who need to know really what's going on in the state. And this is a perfect example of why continued support for the State of Freedom is so important.
Yes, and if listeners would like to support us, you can do that at freedomstate.us, or if you'd prefer to send a check, you can send it to P.O. Box 861, Berg, Louisiana. That's B-O-U-R-G, Louisiana, 70343. And Chris LCAG will most likely be at the hearing on Monday, I would imagine, making our voice known, making the rights of the people known, and shedding a light on some of the things that we found in our own research and that Senator Stine shared today. So if folks would like to continue to support the work that LCAG is doing, you can do that at lcag.org. And the P.O. Box, Chris?
P.O. Box 64952, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, 70896. And I want whoever's listening to us who is a policyholder for Blue Cross Blue Shield, it is important that you know that LCAG is going to be in the oversight hearing this Monday, speaking on your behalf as citizens of Louisiana to prevent this horrible deal from going through that's going to drive your premiums up and that's going to allow the creation of a $3 billion nonprofit organization, supposedly, with your premium dollars so that this nonprofit can engage in political activities, most likely left-leaning political activities that go against your fundamental values. I'm going to be down there fighting against this for that very reason. And so I just want you to know that, and it's an honor and privilege to do so.
Yeah. And, it's just such an honor to be able to come on and shed light on issues that, previously, honestly, I'm not a Blue Cross Blue Shield policy holder, so it's not something that I was aware of before Senator Stine raised it with us probably a month or two ago. But it's great to be able to dig into these issues and shed light on them and just be a voice of truth and honesty whenever it's very apparent that both sides that stand to gain from this are lying to the people who it stands to impact.
Absolutely. They're lying by commission and they're lying by omission, by what they're saying and by what they're not saying. And so I'm very excited about being down there on Monday. I'm very excited about continuing the growth and expansion of the State of Freedom and of LeCag. And I'm very excited about every day, with God's grace and courage and discipline, taking another step to preserve the state of freedom in Louisiana.
Amen. Thanks, Chris.
Amen. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the State of Freedom. To stay on top of all the calls to action we mentioned today, just check out the show notes for the episode. If you'd like to support the show financially, visit our website at freedomstate.us. If you'd prefer to give by mail, you can send a check to the State of Freedom, LLC, at P.O. Box 861, Berg, Louisiana 70343. If you own a business in Louisiana and are interested in supporting our show by advertising, please email us at info@freedomstate.us. To get involved with Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group, visit lacag.org, LACAG.org, or email Chris at chris@lacag.org. If you're enjoying the podcast, please subscribe and share it. Give us a 5-star rating in the reviews. Thanks again, everybody. We'll see you next time.